Good morning, everybody. Our first song today is "Oh, Come All Ye Faithful." You can find it in the New Century Hymnal, which is under your seats. It's number 135. We're going to sing verses 1 and 3. Please stand as you are able in body or in heart. Go get some instruments if you'd like, or finger labyrinths, and let's sing together. You may be seated. Good morning, and welcome to Plymouth United Church. Those of you in the building, those of you who are participating online at whatever point in the week you're watching online, we're glad to have you with us. I want to give the Plymouth community, the local Plymouth community, and the Plymouth community that stretches across geography, a hearty congratulations. We filled 70 NAM Christmas bags this year. We got 80 by clerical error. And when we got the 4 rolled up discs, we thought there were 10 in each of these rolls, and there were 20 in each of them. So however it happened, we said, let's try it. And we gave 10 of the bags back. We got 70 of them filled. When I put out the call for more help, people called in and said, we're happy to give money. So this has been a really successful thing. And we're going to bless those babies a little bit later on in the service. If you want to follow along the bulletin, please check the service bulletin on the app or the website. It's the second Sunday of Advent, so that's exciting. And we're going to have our Unique Boutique open after service today. So go buy Christmas presents and see what the Unique Boutique is all about. Christmas poinsettias, $10 a plant, memorialize or honor a loved one. We've got 40 plants, so it says the cutoff is this Monday, but you can give me your money anytime. Send in your money, people online. If you want to buy a plant, we'll let us know who you're designating it for. And let's see, lots of special holiday stuff going on. Blue Christmas, Winter Solstice, Christmas Eve, but no Christmas Day service. Check all of that out on our website, on our app, on our Facebook page, and on our emails. And now, with all of that, let's bring ourselves fully to this time and to this place in the midst of Advent 2. This is Peace Sunday, so I invite you to find what creates peace for you in your body. There are times where we have to kind of make peace with what's going on. What is happening in your body that you need to make peace with? And what's the most gentle or affirming way that you can do that? Our body is important in the way that we move through this world, and we can sometimes take it for granted or get mad at it for not performing the way that we want it to perform. The same is true of the way that we think. Our brains, sometimes we can get real frustrated with them. How do we make peace with the way that we think? With the stuff we think about, the stuff we can't quite think about, the stuff we ignore thinking about? How can we also remember the ways that our bodies work well and our minds work well and be grateful and joyous about that? Making peace with ourselves is, I think, an important way of honoring ourselves as God's creation, loving ourselves the way God loves us. How do we make peace emotionally with what's going on inside of our emotional landscape? Especially at this holiday season, there's so many emotions, so many things to do, so many feelings to have. What's good? What's joyous? What's working? And how can you look at the stuff that you're not pleased with how it's going, with how your feelings are moving? Rejoice with the stuff that's working. Make peace with what isn't. And take your time and love yourself as a created being of God. Spiritually, sometimes we get frustrated with our spiritual selves. I don't connect to God as strongly. I don't feel the connection. I don't know what the kinds of disagreements we have inside of our spirits are. I only know my own. How can you make peace with the way that you are spiritually and not compare yourself to someone who you think does spirit stuff better? Your spiritual self is good, wonderful, not perfect, still room to grow, room to change, adapt. Breathe into that spiritual essence of yourself. Make peace with who you are, with how you are. As we bring ourselves fully to this time and this place, co-creating this Peace Sunday together.
Please join me in our responsive call to worship. In Advent, we watch and wait. We prepare to welcome the Christ child into the world. Come, Holy Child, come. In heaven, we prepare for a life of discipleship. We watch for signs of God's presence breaking into the world. We watch for signs of God's divine nature in each of us. Come, Holy Child, come. Come, Holy Child. Remind us of our divine essence and what we call it. And now let's sing together, O Little Town of Bethlehem, verses 1 and 2. It's number 133 from the New Century Hymnal, which you can find under your seats. Please stand as you are able in body or in heart.
and voices ring with peace to all the earth.
You may be seated. Sorry about that. We talked about having to make peace with things, and I had to make peace with the fact that I uploaded my most recent worship leader script with my sermon a little later than it was uploaded onto the iPad. So I had to get my personal iPad so that I could actually finish the rest of the service. So thanks for your patience with me not drumming. And now, let me introduce the Vines-Meckler family.
It's the season of short days and long nights. We light this candle to remember that even in natural darkness, our light shines. Lift up the flame of our souls as it guides to all who needs a safe place to live, a shelter from violence, and a friend.
Please join your hearts in prayer with mine. Holy Love, we are grateful for all that you have to offer. And for those of us that are blinded by too much light and scorched by too much heat, we're grateful for the darker days and the coolness that comes with it. And we ask that you would help us and the whole world take this time as reflective moments to turn inward from our really busy lives for all that compels us outward. Help us to find solace in these darker days, and to find our own inner light, to find our own peace, so that we can share it with others when it's time to spread that. And help us as a community in all of the ways that we are at conflict with each other, to be reflective. Help your Spirit, bring your Spirit to help us to be reflective and peaceful with each other. And however you are named by any group of people, may your spirit rise up. And for those who follow a path that is more moral and ethical than religious, may they find what we call a blessing in that introspection and that connection that comes from it. Lead us, O God, in your path. Teach us your ways and help us to connect the way that you have called us to. That is the creation of community, and because we are a community together, let us sing together this prayer.
Give us this day our daily bread.
Each week, we collect 2 offerings. One is for the church, which goes into our general fund for the running of the church and our ministries. The second is the loose offering, which is sent to a designated charity, which changes each week. If you brought your offering in person today, you're welcome to drop it in the offering box in the back. It's the glass church near the doors to the narthex. Today's loose offering will go to Love 146, which is a global organization which journeys alongside children impacted by trafficking today and prevents the trafficking of children tomorrow. Child trafficking intersects with a wide range of issues, including, but not limited to, housing insecurity, poverty, and racism. It does not occur in a vacuum. Love 146's vision is to end of child trafficking and exploitation, nothing less. If you'd like to give to our general fund, to the loose offering, or to both, you can use bill pay from your bank, send us a check, use the Plymouth app, or use push pay according to the directions on your screen. As always, thank you for supporting Plymouth and the ministries of the loose offering.
Praise God from whom all blessings flow. Praise God, all creatures here below. Praise God for all that love has done. Creator, Christ and Spirit, one. Amen.
Please join me in our responsive offertory prayer. Even during Advent, a time set aside for waiting, it is often very hard for us to wait. Our world worships the power that acts quickly through force. We open our hearts and spirits to new birth and transformation.
You may be seated. Now's the time we're going to bless these babies. They need at least 2 cars to bring these to NAM. Isn't that a wonderful problem to have? I'm really excited about it. So I ask you to participate in this prayer with me by repeating after me. Are you ready? Okay. Oh God, we see these bags, and all the gifts in them. And we know that some people have brought bags all ready to NAM on our behalf. You see those. May all these gifts be a blessing to their children and their family. And may they feel our connection of love whenever they play with these toys. We love you, God. And we know that you love us. And we know that you love all of those families. And all of us said, Amen. Be blessed, Bags. And now we're going to sing together. What are we singing together? Once in Royal David City. It is 145 in the New Century Hymnal, verses 1-4. If you would be so kind as to rise as you are able, in body or in heart. So our first biblical witness is from the prophet Joel, chapter 3, verses 9-12. He said this, "Proclaim this among the nations. Prepare war. Stir up the warriors. Let all the soldiers draw near, let them come up. Beat your plowshares into swords and your pruning hooks into spears. Let the weakling say, I am a warrior. Come quickly, all you nations around. Gather yourselves there. Bring down your warriors, O Lord. Let the nations rouse themselves and come up to the valley of Jehoshaphat. For there I will sit to judge all the neighboring nations." And now I'm really glad that Paula is going to read the answer, in a sense, to this.
Our second biblical witness is Isaiah 2, verses 1-4. The word that Isaiah, son of Amoz, saw concerning Judah and Jerusalem. In days to come, the mountain of the Lord's house shall be established as the highest of the mountains, and shall be raised above the hills. All the nations shall stream to it. Many peoples shall come and say, Come, let us go up to the mountain of the Lord, to the house of the God of Jacob, that God may teach us God's ways, and that we may walk in God's paths. For out of Zion shall go forth instruction, and the word of the Lord from Jerusalem. God shall judge between the nations, and shall arbitrate for many peoples. They shall beat their swords into plowshares, and their spears into pruning hooks. Nation shall not lift up sword against nation, neither shall they learn war anymore.
So out of the two readings, which one did you like best? I definitely like the second one. The prophecy and the teaching that includes swords being transformed into plowshares. The other prophet who speaks these words about turning swords into plowshares is Micah. And he almost says the exact same thing as Isaiah, but his ending is a little bit different. He adds, "They shall beat their swords into plowshares and their spears into pruning hooks. Nation shall not lift up sword against nation, neither shall they learn war anymore. But they shall all sit under their own vines and under their own fig trees, and no one shall make them afraid. For the mouth of the Lord of hosts has spoken." No one will make them afraid anymore. What a beautiful world that would be. And the reason is, it says, because God said so. So that's 2 against 1 in a way. The 2 prophets calling for plows over swords, 1 calling for swords over plows. So looked at that way, the plows win, don't they? The call for the end of violence and war, that wins in the book. I looked up the timeline of Isaiah, Micah, and Joel because I was trying to make sense of who said what when and why. It was inconclusive. Isaiah and Micah are typically considered contemporaries of each other. They're said to have prophesied at the end of the 8th century in Judah, which is the southern kingdom. The prophet Joel, harder to pin down. Joel doesn't indicate within their own writing what was going on about when he might have been active like Micah and Isaiah do. So some place him before, some place him after. It would be handy, I think, if it was before. Because then we could make a case that there was a need for the people of Israel to protect themselves before, turning their farming implements into swords. And then things got better. And the prophets later said, and now you can resort them, put them all back to farming implements, and life will go on as usual. So that's the direction I like to think about it, but we don't know. Historically, we don't know. So what do we do with this prophecy from Joel? I think it's important to know it's there, regardless of when he was in the timeline. It reminds me of the teaching from Ecclesiastes. There's a time for this and a time for that. It says there's a time for war and a time for peace. Now, there's a lot of stuff in that section of Ecclesiastes that I'm like, absolutely, there's a time to cry and a time to laugh, a time to do this and a time to do that. But the war and the peace thing, I actually I'm not sure it's necessary. I'm not sure that there has to be a time for war. And I get this from my father. My father was a World War II vet in the Navy. He was a frogman. He detonated bombs under the water, holding his breath. He was part of a team. He walked away from that experience with a mindset that we should never have to resort to war. He said there's always another way. There's always a way to talk things through. If people would just use communication in their conflict rather than combat, we wouldn't have to go to war. So I have to admit, I take a little issue with Ecclesiastes and with Joel. So what I get from Joel is that he's saying there's an urgent conflict and something needs to be done. We need to make things happen. And the sentence that's the most compelling to me in that part of Joel's prophecy is when he says, "Let the weakling say, I am a warrior." What does it mean to be a warrior? I mean, how many times have you had to say to yourself, I can't do this, but I'm gonna have to. This week, the Senate passed a bipartisan landmark legislation to mandate federal recognition for same-sex marriage. The next step is House approval. Then it goes to President Biden, who says he's looking forward to signing it. Given the strikedown of Roe v. Wade and the conversations subsequent to that about marriage equality, there was a scary uncertainty about same-gender loving marriages being revoked. Activists fought back. I don't know about you, but there were times I myself was like, I can't go through this again. I can't do this. But if it comes to pass, I'm going to have to. I'm going to have to be strong. That's the time when you're shaking in your boots that you say to yourself, I am a warrior. I mentioned the whole same-sex marriage thing as a celebration we should be incredibly joyous about, and as an example of peace finding the path. Once again, my father's words come to mind. There are nonviolent ways to address conflict and to create peace. The difference between swords and plowshares is huge. Who here knows what a plowshare is? So we know what a plow is. It digs up the ground, but the plowshare is one of the blades that does it. Swords are symbols of conflict. They're symbols of attack and defense. They indicate fighting and a kind of restlessness that comes with being alert to danger. When you need a weapon, you don't generally relax. You stay attentive to what's going on around you, to what's unsafe, and to who is untrustworthy. You've watched shows, I'm sure, where the person who is the hero has their weapon, and they're said to be sleeping with one eye open. And at the snap of a twig, they're alert and awake, and they rescue the day. That's what that means. Plows are a symbol of work, of hard work. They're also symbols of making a home. Plowing is an investment in the future. Plowing a field, after you do that, you plant. After you plant, you harvest, and all of that takes time. The call to transform swords into plowshares is a call to create community. One where you don't need the swords anymore. A peaceful community. There's a story in Nehemiah when they're rebuilding where it says that they had a weapon in one hand and they were building with the other hand. That's not the creation of a peaceful community. That's kind of some transition area. This call that the prophets of Micah and Isaiah are talking about is a call to transform conflict in a peaceful way. Creating a community of peace begins with each of us. When the whole community agrees, that makes it a lot easier. This is how we're going to resolve our conflicts. Now, and that doesn't mean that there won't be conflicts, right? Because there will always be conflict. It also doesn't mean avoiding conflict or pretending it isn't there, because that just bottles it up and makes it explode later. Laying down our weapons and choosing to build a community is an act of trust that we are in agreement that fighting our way through conflict is a less desirable path than moving through conflict in a peaceful way. When I consider the telling of the ministry of Jesus, this is the choice that I see him making over and over and over again. Now, he wasn't passive. He didn't let people just walk all over him. Sometimes his anger came out in fits of demonstrated rage, but not toward people. And when he was forced to choose between a violent response and a peaceful response to conflict, he chose discussion, debate, or non-engagement, active non-engagement. When they wanted to throw him over a cliff, he mysteriously walked through the crowd on the road as if he wasn't even there. That's a gift I really, really would like to have. At various dinners while walking on the road, at different times in his ministry, when he was confronted by someone about his theology or his actions, he corrected his beliefs with words. At his trial, he refused to answer questions rather than be goaded into a fight. Active disengagement. He probably knew that no matter what he did, his fate was sealed in terms of their decision. But he could have fought back anyway. How many times do you know what direction it's going to go and you're like, but I'm going to go down fighting. I'm going to take out as many people as I can. Jesus said, no. If you take me out, I want everybody to see how innocent I am. I want it to be clear. So he didn't do that. In this time of intentional waiting we call Advent, this week we meditate on this notion of peace. So I ask you, I ask myself all week. I mean, it starts with me. I meditate on this throughout the week, and then I say, how about you? How are we going to do this together to create peace? In what ways can we together do this work? What tools do we have to create community so that others who are also seeking refuge from conflict that leads to fighting can join us? It's our job to be leaders in shaping moments of conflict, where our choice for peace helps us find the most desirable path of resolution and connection. Not to be doormats, not to do nothing. I saw a great post on Facebook just this morning that was talking about protests and how protests aren't just a parade that we go to. They're actions that we take, saying we don't like what's going on. We protest. There are peaceful ways of doing this. And there's peaceful ways of doing it in the church community and as a church outside of the walls when we see that social justice needs to be enacted. And all of this brings us to our communion table today. When I think about this event that we call the Last Supper, I imagine Jesus knowing he's going into a situation of great conflict. He's aware that they're coming for him. Now, whether he's aware because he's all-knowing Jesus, or whether he's aware because he's perceptive about all the hate coming at him, I mean, there's lots of times we know what's about to happen next because you can just read the room, So he was sitting with his friends in this moment, knowing something terrible was going to go down. And in the middle of the meal, he wanted to give his friends something, a gift. He wanted to help them to make peace with a moment that was going to cause them trauma, grief, and fear for themselves. Because if they came after him, assuredly his followers were going to feel like they were targets next. And that just stands to reason to me. And he wanted his friends to have something from him to help them in that moment. I think that when people die, a lot of times we're like, what was the very last thing that they said to me? And we want to hang on to that good last thing. This was one of the good last things. It wasn't the last thing, because it says after this, they went and they sang some songs and stuff, but this was a meaningful moment that they wrote down to share with us, that in the middle of the meal, he took the bread and he broke it. And he said, "This is my body. This is my body to be shared. I want you to take this and eat this now. And I want this to create a memory for you from today for the future so that you can do this again and never feel alone, and never feel like you don't have my strength and my support. And that's what we do today. It's in a different form than it was then. I invite you to take your communion kit and to open it up and to pick up that piece of bread. Let us take and eat this in remembering of Jesus. Likewise, he picked up a cup on the table and he wanted to share that with his friends, and he wanted to make that moment meaningful too. And so he picked it up, he gave thanks, he blessed it, and he said, "Now take this, all of you. Drink from this all together and remember this moment. Let this moment also give you strength, because in this cup is my life essence. In this cup is the very thing that flows through me, and I want it to flow through you too." So let us pick up our cups and allow that message of strength and endurance to come to us today as we take and drink in remembrance of Jesus. Oh God, we thank you for these gifts of bread and drink as a ritual to remember the strength that you gave to your friends and that you now give to us. In whatever ways that we need to draw on this moment and all the moments before that we've had, and to call up the future saying, "And yet again, I will receive this ritual strength." Bring it to our minds, oh God. Help it to be a force within us that calls us to peaceful resolutions, that calls us to stand when we need to stand, to say, "I am strong" when we're feeling weak, to say, "I can take action," to say, "I can do this a different way than I have been taught to do it," or "I can do it differently than others are doing it right now." Bless us with this strength in this moment as we move into the future. Amen. And now it's time to go from this moment to whatever it is you have next. They have other food and other drink for fellowship if you would like to share that with each other. We hope that you stay afterward because we don't want any pumpkin pie left over. I'm pretty sure I saw pumpkin pie in the kitchen. And we want you to share in whatever you want to share in. So let us go forth from this moment in peace and as peacemakers.